They called her the Star Empress, until a human won her heart with a grin. The silence fractured beneath the indigo sky as Marcus's battered ship tore through the frozen cloud banks, screaming toward the frost-bitten plains. Ice fractured and geysers of steam erupted as the vessel skidded to a ragged halt, the hull groaning in protest. Marcus braced himself against the controls, muscles straining, stubborn determination etched across his wind-burned features. When the world finally settled, he exhaled, breath fogging in the cockpit's frigid air. He pushed open the hatch, and the cold slammed into him like a physical blow. Drawing his weathered jacket tight, Marcus climbed down the scarred hull and landed with a crunch on the crystalline snow. He gave his ship a rueful glance, then scanned the horizon. There, not far off, a citadel jutted from the frozen plain, a jagged spike of obsidian and glass, black as the void, catching the faint light with razor-sharp reflections. Marcus set his jaw and trudged forward, boots crunching with each determined step. High above, within the citadel's crystalline spire, Zephyra stood before a vast window, her gaze fixed on the newcomer. Her skin shimmered in gradients of violet and midnight, luminous sigils tracing delicate constellations along her cheeks and temples. Her eyes, swirling with the colors of nebulae, narrowed with curiosity. Behind her, the air vibrated as her advisor entered. A stoic figure, silver-skinned and clad in ceremonial armor, voice measured. "Shall I dispatch the sentinels, my sovereign?" he intoned, his eyes never leaving the screens where Marcus's progress flickered in ghostly blue. Zephyra's posture was serene, yet her fingers curled around the edge of her observation table. "No, Varen. Wait. He is not like the others who have crashed here. There is calm in him, not desperation." She watched as Marcus moved with steady efficiency, even as the icy wind whipped around him. "Let us observe." Below, Marcus circled the looming citadel, eyes sharp. He paused at a service hatch where the hum of energy faltered, the faint stutter of a failing relay evident even through the walls. His lips quirked. "Figures," he muttered, kneeling and pulling a battered toolkit from his pack. Fingers numb but nimble, he pried open the access panel, revealing a mess of conduits and circuit webs. Sparks fizzed. The defense grid above flickered uncertainly. He whistled low. "Overcomplicated for a simple voltage split," he said to himself, fishing out a length of wire from his salvaged supplies. He stripped and spliced, patching the relay with practiced confidence, occasionally glancing at the glowing veins of power dancing through alien materials. "Bet you never had a real mechanic down here," he added with a half-smile. Unbeknownst to him, Zephyra leaned closer to her surveillance feed, studying the movements of his hands. The rhythm in his work mesmerized her, the way he coaxed order from chaos, undaunted by technology meant to terrify outsiders. For a moment, her regal composure slipped, curiosity flaring into something deeper. When Marcus finished, the grid's hum steadied, lights rippling along the citadel's eaves. He looked up and met a pair of eyes watching from the high glass balcony. They were unlike any he'd seen, alive with galaxies, fierce and gentle at once. The connection hung in the air, charged and silent. Marcus grinned, lopsided and warm. Zephyra felt her heart stutter, a heat rising in her chest. She quickly stepped back from the window, the echo of his smile haunting her thoughts. Later, as dusk bled indigo through the frost, Zephyra descended from her private chambers, robes swirling like shadows. She approached the repair site, tall and regal, her presence electrifying the cold air. Marcus, crouched by the panel, didn't look up. "You know," he said, "your power grid's a maze. Beautiful, but inefficient. Ever considered simplifying it?" Zephyra arched a brow, voice low and musical. "Efficiency is not always the highest priority, stranger. Redundancy preserves life. He glanced up, meeting her gaze without flinching. But complexity invites failure. That relay, if it shorts again, your entire north quadrant goes dark. Here. He beckoned, patting the ground beside him. She hesitated, then knelt, her height dwarfing him even as she folded gracefully to the icy floor. He guided her elongated hand to a sparking conduit, their skin nearly touching. See this? If you loop it directly, like this, it bypasses the whole mess. Their fingers brushed. A pulse, more sensation than shock, shivered through Zephyra, a charge that made her catch her breath. Marcus felt it too, his hand lingering. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat the world fell away, leaving only possibility. A deliberate cough broke the moment. Varen stood a respectful distance away, eyes flicking between them with unreadable calculation. Zephyra rose, composure returning, though her voice was softer. You will have quarters in the West Wing. Rest. You have earned it. Marcus watched her go, the ghost of her touch still tingling in his hand. As Zephyra ascended the spiral stair, her fingers traced the place where his warmth had lingered, curiosity and uncertainty vying in her chest. She wondered, with a thrill both exhilarating and terrifying, what other changes this human might bring. At dawn, the citadel erupted in sound. Alarms shrieked through every corridor, crimson lights strobing against polished obsidian. Zephyra was already awake, armored in iridescent plating that caught the uncertain morning light, her gaze sharpened by urgency. She strode from her private chamber, cape billowing, and stormed up the spiral to the command deck. The doors parted for her with a hiss. The command deck was chaos. Advisors barked into comms, holographic maps shimmered with pulsing alerts, and the low thrum of the shield generators had taken on a frantic, uneven pitch. Varen, ever vigilant, met Zephyra at the threshold. Breach reported near the west quadrant, he said, voice taut. The point coincides with the location the outsider repaired. The words hung heavy, doubt flickering in the eyes of every officer present. Zephyra's jaw clenched. Send scouts. I want confirmation, not conjecture. She snapped, scanning the feeds. An officer piped in. Scouts already dispatched, Sovereign. Initial sensors show an external frequency assault, but the grid's destabilizing near the repaired sector. Before Zephyra could reply, the doors slid open. Marcus strode in, jacket half-zipped, eyes clear and unwavering. I heard the alarms, he said, ignoring the hostile stares. What's happening? Varen's hand hovered near his weapon. There's been a breach. At your repair site. Convenient, isn't it? Marcus looked from Zephyra to the surrounding officers, reading the suspicion in the air. He stepped forward, planting his feet. If you're thinking this is my fault, you're wrong. I patched your relay, but your defenses were already on their last legs. If anything, my fix is keeping things from getting worse. A young scout, breathless, burst onto the deck. Sovereign, intruders at the perimeter. They're using frequency disruptors, modulated pulses, targeting our shield harmonics. Marcus's brow furrowed. That's how they're getting in, he said quickly. They're using a signal to destabilize your shields, not a physical breach. My modifications wouldn't cause this. If anything, the grid's holding because of them. Zephyra turned to the scout. Show me the waveform. A projection flickered to life. Marcus leaned in, tracing the jagged spikes with his finger. See this? Their disruptors are pushing your shield harmonics out of phase. I can recalibrate the core, but someone has to hold the junction steady while I work. Varen eyed Marcus, wary. You expect us to trust you? Marcus met Zephyra's gaze, steady as ever. You don't have a choice. If we don't act, your shields collapse and those intruders storm this place. Zephyra studied him for a heartbeat, then nodded. Come with me. They ran, the corridors trembling underfoot. Emergency lights flashed, and the air was thick with the scent of ozone and fear. As they rounded a corner, a blast echoed through the halls. The deck shuddered. Zephyra stumbled, thrown off balance. Marcus caught her before she could fall, his arms strong around her waist. For an instant, she was startled by the warmth of his grip, the steadiness he offered. "You all right?" he asked, his voice low. She straightened, her regal composure slipping just a fraction. "We must hurry." They pressed on, weaving through chaos. Medics knelt over wounded defenders, their luminous hands working to staunch wounds. Sparks rained from the ceiling where a support strut had collapsed. Marcus ducked under a sparking conduit, pulling Zephyra with him. Around the next bend, defenders in gleaming armor clashed with shadowy intruders wielding disruptor blades. Zephyra barked orders, her voice carrying through the din. "To the generator core!" Marcus shouted over the noise. The generator room was a tempest of light and sound. The central core, a vast column of pulsing energy, flickered dangerously. A relay junction on the upper platform spasmed with arcs of wild electricity. Marcus raced to the control panel, scanning the diagnostics. "The disruptors have thrown the core out of sync," he said, hands flying across the alien interface. "We need to recalibrate the main harmonics, or it's going to blow." Zephyra didn't hesitate. She climbed onto the maintenance platform, bracing herself at the volatile junction. Her plating shimmered, reflecting the wild energy dancing around them. "Tell me what to do," she said. Marcus glanced at her, impressed. "Hold the conduit steady, or the resonance will feed back and fry us both." She gripped the junction, her hands steady despite the tremors. "Ready." He worked quickly, rerouting power, his fingers moving with practiced precision. The core's hum deepened, the energy stabilizing, but suddenly, a surge ripped through the system, and an arc of power leaped from the junction. Marcus threw himself toward Zephyra, shielding her as the energy exploded between them. The force flung them together, pinning her against the railing, his body pressed close to hers. For a breathless instant, time seemed to slow, the world around them fading to the heat of their bodies, the wild pulse of the generator, the electric crackle hanging in the air. Their eyes met, mere inches apart. Marcus's breath caught at the swirling galaxies in her gaze. Zephyra felt her heart hammering, a sensation unfamiliar and exhilarating. For a moment, the chaos of the citadel ceased to exist. The core's whine faded. The shield stabilizers clicked back into rhythm. Zephyra blinked, realizing she was still wrapped in Marcus's arms, his hands gentle against her back. He looked her over, concern softening his features. "You hurt?" She shook her head, still dazed, her voice a whisper. "No. You?" Marcus managed a crooked grin. "I'll live. You make a good anchor." Zephyra gave a breathless laugh, the sound surprising them both. The moment lingered, the energy between them no longer just electrical, but deeply, undeniably, human. A comm unit buzzed, shattering the spell. Varen's voice filtered through, urgent. "Sovereign, intruders have breached the eastern wing. We need you." Duty called them back to reality. Marcus released her, stepping away, though his hand brushed hers for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Saphira steadied herself, regal mask sliding back into place, but her thoughts churned with a new, confusing warmth. As they hurried from the generator room, side by side, their connection, tempered in crisis, felt stronger, deeper. Whatever else waited beyond the citadel walls, something vital had changed between them, forged in fire and electricity. With the new sunrise, the citadel's tension sharpened into revelation. A pallid glow crept through the obsidian spires as Zephyra strode to the command deck, the night's battles etched in the set of her jaw. Reports from the scouts trickled in, each more troubling than the last. At the heart of the confusion was a name spoken in trembling voices: Kyle. Her advisor stood rigid, voice low. The invader leads the host personally. It is Kyle, your kin. Zephyra's composure fractured. Kale? Her lips shaped the name with disbelief and pain. He orchestrated the attack? Varen nodded grimly. He arranged the outsider's crash as well. Everything converges at Marcus. The words stung sharper than frostbite. Doubt festered, corroding the fragile trust she had begun to place in the human. Without another word, Zephyra swept from the command deck, her iridescent armor catching the hard light of dawn. She found Marcus alone in the armory, checking the charge on a battered plasma cutter. The clank of her boots made him look up, hope flickering in his tired eyes. "Zephyra," he began, but her voice cut through the air, edged with hurt. "You knew him. Kale. You let yourself be used as his pawn?" Marcus flinched, hurt tightening his features. He set the cutter aside and stepped toward her, hands open. "You think I wanted any of this?" His voice was raw. "He's the reason I crashed. He sabotaged my ship. I barely escaped with my life." Zephyra's gaze searched his, torn between logic and the ache in her chest. "All the evidence leads to you. The breach, the attack. Now Kale stands at our gates. Why should I trust you?" He exhaled, anguish roughening his words. "I was running from Kale, not working for him. He's hunted me across half the sector. I thought I'd found a way out, but he's always a step ahead." Marcus's voice dropped, pleading. "Look at me, Zephyra. If I meant you harm, I'd never have saved your people. I'd never have risked my life for you." Zephyra's voice faltered. "Why would he chase you?" Marcus's jaw clenched. "Because I know what he wants. I've seen what he's capable of. He manipulates, destroys. He leaves nothing but ruin behind. You're not the first sovereign he's tried to break." The silence between them stretched, taut and trembling. Zephyra's thoughts churned, the memory of Marcus's steady hands and warm laughter warring with the bitter sting of betrayal. She reached for the hilt of her ceremonial blade, fingers tightening, then released it, letting the weapon fall to her side. "I want to believe you," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. "But if I do, and you betray me—" Marcus's eyes glistened, a plea shining in their earthy depths. "I won't. Not now. Not ever." He stepped closer, heart pounding in his chest, and Zephyra did not retreat. Their faces hovered, uncertain, longing. Marcus raised a trembling hand, brushing his thumb along the edge of her iridescent cheek. For a heartbeat, she closed her eyes, letting herself feel the warmth, the hope. Then, as if drawn by a force beyond them both, she leaned in. Their lips met, tentative at first, searching, then deepening into a kiss that melted the walls she'd built around her heart. Marcus's hands threaded through her midnight hair, and Zephyra pressed closer, her breath mingling with his in a promise older than words. A sharp knock shattered the moment. Varen's voice was urgent. "Sovereign! Kale approaches under a flag of truce." Zephyra broke away, eyes still luminous from the kiss. She composed herself, armor glinting in the pale light, and turned to Marcus. "This changes nothing," she warned, though her tone was softer now. "If you betray me—" Marcus caught her face between his palms, voice steady and low. "You have my word, Zephyra. I'm with you. No matter what he says. No matter what comes." She studied him, her heart pounding, then nodded. "I choose to trust you. For the first time in a long while, I will risk my heart." Night fell hard over the citadel, the air thick with anticipation and sorrow. In a quiet alcove, Zephyra sat before a flickering hearth, the fire's glow reflecting in her swirling eyes. Marcus joined her, settling beside her on a low bench carved from obsidian. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was intimate, heavy with unsaid things. Zephyra's voice trembled as she began. "Long ago, my people soared among the stars. We were explorers, artists, builders of wonders. Her fingers traced the sigils etched along her arm, each one a story, a memory. But our ambition became our downfall. We reached too far, unleashed a force we could not control. The cataclysm fractured our world and scattered our kin. Now, we hide in these cold halls, haunted by our own mistakes. Marcus listened, absorbing the pain woven through her words. And Kale? Kale was once my closest kin, my brother in all but blood. Zephyr's voice was a whisper. The cataclysm changed him. He craves vengeance, power. He wants to punish those he blames for our exile. I seek peace, a chance to heal. He seeks only destruction. She covered her face with trembling hands. He blames me most of all. Marcus slid to his knees before her, his hands enveloping hers and pulling them gently away. You're not alone anymore, he murmured. You don't have to carry this by yourself. Zephyr's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I fear what he will do. To you. To all of us. He squeezed her hands, firm and warm. Let him come. We'll face him together. She searched his face, hope and fear mingling in her gaze. Even if it means risking everything? Marcus smiled, the lines around his eyes softening. Especially then. I didn't come this far to run now. The fire crackled, shadows dancing along the walls. Zephyra leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her as if to shield her from the darkness pressing at the citadel's gates. Their hopes and fears intertwined in the hush between heartbeats. Marcus's fingers stroked her hair, and Zephyra let herself believe, for the first time in ages, that love could be stronger than grief. They found solace in each other, lips meeting in a slow, tender embrace. The promise in that union was quiet but unbreakable, a vow born not of desperation, but of trust and longing, two worlds entwined by fate. As the firelight flickered, they whispered their promises, to stand together, to face Kale, to risk everything for the fragile hope that had kindled between them. And in that moment, the cold, haunted halls of the Citadel felt a little less lonely, and the future, uncertain as it was, seemed filled with possibility. Preparations for Kale's return transformed the Citadel overnight. The obsidian corridors pulsed with the energy of anticipation, every chamber alive with the clang of armor and the hum of charged weaponry. Zephyra moved through it all, regal and focused, her mind racing with strategy. By her side, Marcus worked with the defenders, translating his practical know-how into quick, efficient improvements. A barricade reinforced with parts from his wrecked ship, a shield emitter rewired for faster recharge. In private, away from the eyes of her people, Zephyra and Marcus trained together in the echoing chamber beneath the West Tower. She taught him the flowing forms of her people's combat, their movements a graceful blur of feints and parries. Marcus, for his part, showed her how to turn a stumble into an advantage, how to use the environment itself, rails, scaffolding, even fallen shields, as weapons. Their partnership deepened with every exchange. What began as instruction soon became a dance, punctuated by laughter and breathless pauses, where their hands lingered on each other's arms, their gazes holding a promise that words could not contain. Careful, Zephyra teased one evening, circling him with a playful light in her eyes. You're picking up our moves almost too quickly. Marcus grinned, rolling his shoulder where her last strike had landed. It helps to have an excellent teacher. Besides, improvisation's in my blood. She lunged, and he countered, guiding her wrist until they were chest to chest. For a moment they simply stood there, close enough to feel the warmth of each other's breath. Zephyra's hand rested against his heart. I trust you, Marcus, she whispered, her voice trembling with something more than exertion. He brushed a stray strand of midnight hair from her cheek. I won't let you down, he promised, his words as steady as his grip. Their laughter grew more intimate in the days that followed, touches lingering longer, shared silences full of meaning. In those stolen hours, the storm outside seemed far away, but the peace was always fleeting. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the ice fields, the advisor appeared in the training hall, his tone grave. Sovereign, the vanguard signals Kale's arrival. He comes to parley, as promised. Zephyra's demeanor shifted instantly, regal and composed. She nodded, then took Marcus's hand. It's time. They stood side by side in the grand hall, the ceiling soaring above them like the vault of a starless night. Defenders lined the walls, silent and watchful. The doors boomed open, and Kale strode in, draped in shadow and silver, his eyes cold and predatory. He took in the sight of Zephyra and Marcus, their joined stance, and a sneer curled his lips. Touching, Kale drawled, his voice smooth and mocking. A sovereign consorting with a castaway. How far you've fallen, Zephyra. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. Careful who you insult. You're the one who needs a flag of truce to get through the door. Kale's gaze flicked to Marcus, disdain sharpening his features. You cling to this world like a parasite, human. You have no place here. Zephyra stepped forward, her voice ringing with authority. He has more honor than you, Kale. My people see his courage. I see his heart. You will not divide us. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The defenders, once suspicious, now watched Marcus with new respect. He stood beside Zephyra, his presence unwavering, and she felt a thrill. Pride, loyalty, and something deeper. Kale's eyes narrowed, reading the shift in the room. We shall see how long your faith endures, he said, voice heavy with threat. He left as swiftly as he had come, but the shadow of battle lingered long after his footsteps faded. At dawn, the first strike fell. The citadel shuddered under the barrage, shield generators whining as Kale's forces advanced across the ice. Zephyra stood high above the main hall, her armor gleaming, voice echoing across the comm lines. Defenders to the north wall! Hold the breach! She commanded, her presence a beacon amid the chaos. Below, Marcus sprinted through smoke-filled corridors, relaying orders to squads, patching damaged defenses, even hauling injured fighters to safety. His knowledge of both human and alien tech turned the tide at every choke point. Reroute power to the main emitter, Marcus barked, wrenching open a control panel as sparks danced overhead. If the shields drop, we're done. A defender nodded, following his instructions. In the thick of the fight, Marcus's confidence and resolve were contagious. He moved like he belonged, and the defenders responded in kind. Above, Zephyra watched Marcus's progress on her tactical display. Her heart twisted every time the feed flickered with explosions, every time his name came over the comms. She could not bear to watch him risk himself alone. Stripping off her ceremonial cloak, she leapt from the command platform and raced down the stairs, her decision made. She found Marcus holding the line at the breached east gate, plasma cutter in one hand, shield in the other. He glanced up, surprise and relief mingling in his eyes. Couldn't stay away? Zephyra grinned, sliding into position beside him. You need someone to watch your blind side. They fought together, their movements in perfect sync. Zephyra's fluid strikes and Marcus's raw pragmatism complemented one another, creating a seamless dance of defense and attack. She anticipated his moves. He covered her flanks. They moved as one, unstoppable. Around them, the defenders rallied, inspired by their unity. The tide began to turn. Kale's forces faltered, pressed back by the combined strength of Sovereign and Outsider. Zephyra caught sight of Kale across the melee, his eyes full of fury, his confidence shaken. Hold the line! Zephyra called, voice ringing with hope. For the Citadel! Marcus slammed his shield into an enemy, then spun to cover Zephyra as she dispatched another. The final wave broke against them like water on rock. When the last of Kale's soldiers fell or fled, a stunned silence washed over the battlefield. The defenders, battered but alive, began to cheer. Zephyra, breathless and trembling, turned to Marcus. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around him, pulling him close. He buried his face in her shoulder, laughter and relief mingling in the space between them. She cupped his face in her hands, eyes shining. "We did it," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. He smiled, leaning in. Their lips met in a fierce, breathless kiss, the world narrowing to the heat between them. Around them, her people watched, not with suspicion, but with awe and newfound acceptance. As Zephyra and Marcus clung to each other, the defenders gathered, voices rising in celebration. For the first time, Marcus felt the weight of belonging settle on his shoulders, not as an outsider, but as one of their own. The Citadel's halls, scarred by battle yet alive with hope, echoed with the promise of new beginnings, unity born of trust and love. Victory was still fresh on the air when the shadow of betrayal crept through the Citadel. The defenders were tending to wounds and repairing broken barricades when a young scout sprinted into the hall, eyes wide and breath ragged. "Sovereign! Marcus!" the scout gasped, clutching a datapad. "It's the chief technician. He's Kale's agent. He's sabotaged the energy core. He's in the engine bay now. Armed." The news struck like a blow. Zephyra's features hardened, but Marcus was already on the move, weaving through corridors pulsing with warning lights. He barreled down the staircase toward the engine bay, boots pounding against the obsidian floor. The engine bay glowed with the heart of the Citadel's power, conduits snaking like veins around the humming core. The chief technician stood at the control panel, fingers flying over the keys, sweat beading on his brow. He spun as Marcus entered, eyes wild. "You won't stop it," the technician hissed, voice trembling with fanatic devotion. "Kale promised freedom, an end to this prison." Marcus advanced, fists clenched. "You're destroying everything, your home, your people." The technician's hand slammed down on a hidden switch. All at once, alarms shrieked, and the floor vibrated with a deep, ominous rumble. The fail-safe sequence flashed crimson across every display. "You think you can fix this?" the traitor spat. "You're too late." Marcus lunged, grabbing the man's arm, wrestling him away from the console. They struggled, knocking over tools and panels. Sparks spat from a ruptured cable as Marcus forced the technician to the ground. But the fail-safe countdown blared, unrelenting. A streak of violet and silver burst into the room. Zephyra, weapon in hand. She moved with sovereign precision, stunning the traitor with a pulse of energy that left him crumpled and twitching. Marcus locked eyes with her, urgency burning between them. "It's started. The whole core will blow unless we override it. Manual reset only." Zephyra didn't hesitate. "Show me." Together, they raced through the maze of catwalks toward the reactor's core. Lights flickered, and the air grew thick with radiation warnings. Zephyra bypassed a sealed hatch with a flick of her sigil-emblazoned wrist. Marcus overrode a jammed lock with a twist of his multi-tool. As they reached the final chamber, the heat was nearly unbearable, the radiation alarms screaming their warning. Marcus's breath came ragged. "There's no time for shielding. We have to go in now, or it's over." Zephyra's hand found his, trembling but resolute. Together. He pulled her close, desperation and affection mingling in his eyes. "Whatever happens, He broke off, pressing his lips to hers in a kiss raw with fear and promise. Zephyra returned it fiercely, her arms circling his neck, the world narrowing to this one vital moment. Then they plunged through the hatch. The chamber blazed with searing light, radiation biting at exposed skin. Marcus coughed, fighting dizziness, but his hands never faltered on the controls. Zephyra moved beside him, her body a shield as she rerouted conduits, her luminous skin shimmering with sweat. Every second was agony, a symphony of pain and determination. "Switch the primary and secondary relays," Marcus shouted over the roaring alarms. "You'll have to hold both connectors. I'll recalibrate the main fuse." Zephyra braced herself, hands steady despite the tremors racking her body. "Do it." "I'm ready." He ripped the emergency override from the console, sparks arcing up his arms. Zephyra gritted her teeth, absorbing the energy surge as Marcus forced the fuse into place. The countdown flashed down. 5, 4, 3. "Now!" he yelled. She slammed the connectors together. The core shrieked, then stabilized, the alarms dying one by one. Silence fell, broken only by their labored breathing. Zephyra slumped to her knees, Marcus collapsing beside her. For a moment they lay side by side, the only sound the thudding of their hearts. The doors burst open. Medics rushed in, faces pale with worry. Strong hands lifted Marcus and Zephyra, carrying them through the maze of corridors to the infirmary. Zephyra's people pressed close, gratitude blazing in their eyes. A medic hovered over Marcus, running a scanner over his burns and bruises. "You're both lucky to be alive. The radiation, there may be lingering effects." Zephyra's fingers laced through Marcus's, her voice steady. "We'll heal. We have to." A scout burst in, eyes shining. "Sovereign, Kale's forces are in full retreat. The sabotage failed. The Citadel stands." Cheers erupted in the corridor. Defenders and civilians alike pressed forward to see the pair who had saved them all. For the first time, Marcus was greeted not as a stranger, but as a hero. Hands clapped his shoulder. Voices offered thanks in a dozen dialects. Zephyra smiled through her exhaustion, pride swelling in her chest. Later, as the night deepened and the fires in the hearth glowed low, Zephyra and Marcus sat wrapped in a blanket, their wounds bandaged but their spirits unbowed. The Citadel was quiet, the hush a balm after days of chaos. Zephyra stared into the flames, the colors flickering across her face. "I never thought I'd see my people like this. Open, hopeful. They were so afraid to change, to trust anyone outside our walls." Marcus drew her close, his chin resting atop her head. "Sometimes it takes a little danger to remind people what's worth fighting for, or who." She smiled, her fingers tracing the lines of his hand. "You've changed us. All of us. They see the future differently now." "Because of you," he said softly. "You led them through the storm." Zephyra shook her head, a tear glimmering in her star-flecked eyes. "No. We did it together. You gave me courage to risk everything." He pressed a gentle kiss to her brow. "So what happens now?" She met his gaze, hope shining through her fatigue. "Now, we rebuild. We forge new alliances, welcome those we once feared. I want a future shaped by unity, not by old wounds. And I want you at my side." Marcus's hand tightened around hers, his smile fierce and full of promise. Always." As the fire crackled and the Citadel's halls whispered with the laughter of the newly hopeful, Zephyra saw, at last, a horizon filled with possibility, a world reborn through trust, shaped by love, and strengthened by the unity of two hearts beating as one. 3 months after the siege, the Citadel lived and breathed with a vibrancy unseen in generations. Once sterile halls rang with laughter and the clang of invention. Human and alien engineers worked shoulder to shoulder, welding new conduits, sketching holographic blueprints, and debating solutions in a babel of languages. Where suspicion had once cast long shadows, there was now only the steady light of purpose and hope. Zephyra wandered these halls each morning, unarmored and unburdened, her stride easy, her eyes bright with pride. Everywhere she looked, signs of renewal abounded. Panels covered in chalk-scrawled equations, gardens coaxed from hydroponic tanks, old scars in the walls patched with polished glass and living crystal. Children, of both species, raced down corridors, dodging the legs of busy mechanics. In the central atrium, the once icy air now thrummed with energy and song. On the upper terrace, the view stretched for miles across the thawing plain. Zephyra stood there, letting the gentle wind tangle her hair, her hands clasped behind her back. The sky, once a swirl of hostile indigo, now glimmered with the first blush of green auroras, a sign of the planet's gradual healing. Footsteps approached. Zephyra turned to see Marcus, dressed in local attire, deep blue tunic, utility belt, boots caked with honest work. He moved with the confident ease of a man at home, not a stranger. He grinned as he came to her side, eyes crinkling at the corners. "You're up early," he said, voice teasing. "You know, most sovereigns would sleep in after 3 days of back-to-back committee meetings." Zephyra laughed, her hand slipping into his. "Most sovereigns don't get to see their world reborn, or have a partner who brings them fresh coffee from the East kitchens." He handed her a steaming mug, still marveling at how easily affection flowed between them now. "The engineers are experimenting with roasting techniques. There's talk of building an actual cafe in the West Wing." She took a sip and made a face. Perhaps a few more experiments first. They stood in companionable silence for a while, watching teams below install new solar arrays. A human architect and an alien botanist arguing animatedly over the shape of a greenhouse dome. The citadel no longer felt like a fortress, but a beginning. Marcus leaned against the railing. "The Interstellar Assembly is sending envoys, you know. Word is, they're impressed, borderline shocked actually, by what you've accomplished here." Zephyra arched an elegant brow. "What we've accomplished? You and everyone who chose to build instead of fight." He nudged her shoulder, warmth in his gaze. "Still, not bad for a planet that started as a prison." Before Zephyra could reply, the advisor approached, no longer stiff or wary, but open and respectful, silver cloak gleaming in the sunlight. He bowed low. "Sovereign Marcus, good tidings. The Assembly's delegation will arrive within the week." "Thank you, Varen," Zephyra replied, her tone gentle. "Is there more?" Varen smiled, gesturing to a young woman waiting nearby, her skin shimmering with the soft glow of promise. "Allow me to present our new chief engineer, Lyra. She has news of the next phase." Lyra stepped forward, her arms full of data slates and a spark of excitement in her eyes. "We've mapped geothermal vents to accelerate terraforming. Early projections suggest the first gardens could bloom by year's end. We're expanding the West Wing to house the Assembly's envoys. And," she held up a shimmering schematic, "we're building a network of comm relays to reconnect with the outer settlements. The entire community is involved. There's so much hope, Sovereign." Zephyra's pride was unguarded. "You lead well, Lyra. Carry on." Lyra beamed and hurried away, already sketching plans in the air. Marcus watched her go, then turned back to Zephyra, wonder in his voice. 3 months ago, none of this seemed possible. 3 months ago, I barely trusted myself. Now, I trust everyone here, thanks to you." He squeezed her hand, lips brushing her temple. "We did this together, Zephyra. That's what matters." That evening, the great hall overflowed with life. Banners of both worlds hung side by side. The scent of food and the sound of music filled the air. The assembly gathered, expectant and joyful, the scars of old wounds forgotten in the glow of new beginnings. Zephyra stepped onto the dais, her voice carrying across the throng. "Friends, Family, today, I bring news from the stars. The interstellar assembly has seen our progress, our unity. They will lift our exile, step by step, as we continue to heal and build. This is not the triumph of one, but of many, of all who chose unity over division, hope over fear. Applause thundered, rolling through the hall like a wave. She reached for Marcus, drawing him to her side. And to those who chose love over fear, I owe everything. Let our stories show that peace begins with trust and with the courage to embrace the unknown. Marcus's cheeks flushed, but he stood tall. Zephyra took his hand, raising it for all to see. It is my honor to name Marcus, not only my partner, but ambassador to the assembly. Let him carry our hope to the stars. A cheer erupted, the crowd surging forward, joy and wonder shining in every face. Old prejudices dissolved, children waved flags, elders wept openly, holocams transmitted the scene across the world and far beyond, to distant outposts and listening ships. The image of Zephyra and Marcus, joined hands, radiant smiles, became a beacon of possibility. Later, as celebrations swept through the citadel and the night sky shimmered with 1,000 lanterns, Marcus and Zephyra slipped away to the quiet of the terrace. The world below glowed with light and laughter. Marcus pulled Zephyra close, resting his forehead against hers. "Did you ever imagine this?" She smiled, her voice soft. "I imagined many futures, none as bright as this." He wrapped her in his arms, the cold forgotten in their embrace. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." Zephyra nodded, hope swelling in her chest. Together, always. They stood beneath the alien stars, their love now a symbol for all, a promise that even the harshest winters could thaw, and that unity, born of courage and affection, could forge a future brighter than any exile could dim. Their story did not end that night, but stretched forward, into new adventures, new dreams, and a world remade by the power of trust and love. That's the end of the story. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.